Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another session. And by popular demand, we are going to do a myth busting series. So, top of the list would be the mutual funds. Now, the whole objective here is to share with you what the mutual fund industry actually doesn't tell you, or what the industry did not tell you, what your advisors did not tell you. So, we are going to do that right now. So, to get things started, I am going to first establish a perspective right now. And I want to introduce you a company called Vanguard. So Vanguard here is the largest, as it is stated here, is the largest provider of mutual funds. And essentially they have 4.4 trillion assets under management. And so that's a lot of money. Now, to put things in perspective, in the Philippines, one of the top mutual funds providers is a very reputable company. If you're into mutual funds, they're very stable, very reputable, and they have roughly around $1 billion. So Vanguard at 4.4 is astronomical. So this just shows you an example of just the difference and how large they are. So they've been around for 42 years, as it is stated, and they were founded by a man called John Bogle. So now we're going to get into an interview that they've conducted with John Bogle. All right. So here he is. So I think he's retired now, but a couple of years ago, this was a famous article, and I'm going to show you because it outlines everything about the mutual funds. So follow my lead, follow my mouse right here. So right here it says, what percent or what percentage of my net growth is going to fees in a 401k plan? Now, don't worry about what is a 401k plan. In the Philippines, we do not have a 401k plan, but what is the closest one to it is essentially a mutual fund because they are structured fundamentally the same, or the same way rather. So here's his answer. An individual who is 20 years old today, starting to accumulate for retirement, and that person has 45 years to go before retirement, as it says right here. So from age 20 to 65, and if you believe the actuarial tables, another 20 years to go before death mercifully brings his or her life to a close. So that's 65 years of investing. So what it means is you start working at 20 and you retire at 65 and then you live for another 20 years. So that is a total of 65 years of investing. And if you invest for $1,000 at the beginning of that time and you don't touch it, at 8%, it grows to, as it says right here, $1,000 will grow in that 65-year period to 140,000. And you can verify this by using a time value calculator. So pretty straightforward, right? Now here's where it gets interesting. Now, the financial system, the mutual fund system in this case, specifically the mutual fund system in this case, will take about 2.5% percentage points out of that return. So that 2.5 is what you call a management fee. So you will have a gross return of 8%. Again, the market produces 8% return, but take out 2.5, a net return now happens, and that is a 5.5% return, and your 1,000 will grow to approximately 30,000 from a potential 140. So the question is the difference there, the 110,000 goes to, check this out, the financial system, and 30,000 goes to you, the uninformed investor. So think about that. That means the financial system put up 0% of the capital and took 0% of the risk, but they got almost 80% of the return, and you put up 100% of the capital, took 100% of the risk, and got only a little bit over 20% return. And so, as he bluntly puts it, so the system has to be fixed. So there you have it, straight from Vanguard, straight from the largest mutual fund provider in the world. Okay. Now, what does he mean by this? Right. So that's actually what we're going to do right now. I'm going to break it down for you what he actually means. So I hope this will help you out a lot. So let me just switch windows real quickly. Okay. So now, if we look at a graph, all right here. So if we do a graph, this is essentially what he means. So you have a total of 65 years of investing, and you have a compounding curve. You invest 1,000 in the beginning, it grows to 8% annually, that compounds, and you get 140,000 return on your investment, right? So that's essentially what he's saying. But the reality is, it looks more like this. So you take that same 65 years of investing, and you also start with 1,000, right? But the reality is you're not going to get 140, you're only going to get 30. That's what he's saying. Now, why is that? And this is now the part where the institutions or your advisors actually do not tell you about. If there is such a thing as compounding interest or compounding growth, there is also such a thing as compounding cost. And it looks something like this. On that same 65-year period, your compounding cost would have essentially taken how much? Yep, the difference between 140 and 30. This is where that 110 actually went. That's where it went. So if this is the positive side, right? And you have the negative side as well. Let's break it down. So this is a positive, this is negative. So now what he's saying here is that now the difference here, this is now in the form of fees, management fees, brokers fees, commissions, withdrawal fees, and all sorts of fees. And you could even add on taxes and inflation. So if you are not mindful of this, this is what you call now the silent wealth killer, because it really silently kills your wealth and you don't even know about it. And this is the classic case of, is the glass half empty or half full? So what I mean by this is you could look at this in two perspectives. The amateur investor or the average investor will look at this and say, my 1,000 grew 30 times. My 1,000 is now 30, and I'm happy with that. But the professional investor, however, will say, I just lost 110, and I'm not happy at all. So there's two things at play here. Compounding interest, this 8% growth is good if you do two things. Number one, you minimize the effect of downside losses. Why? For every loss, so let's say there's a downturn here, a downturn here, a downturn here. For every downturn, that means you're losing capital, and capital loss is capital that cannot grow. Number two is exactly what is illustrated here, is you want to minimize compounding cost. If you can do number one and number two, then and only then can compounding interest work efficiently in your favor. So now let me ask you this then. So what would a professional investor do, and how would he do it differently, right? So I'm going to show you the professional's graph, and it will look something like this. So that same 65 years is there. And if we base it on an overall return of 8% at 140, maybe, just maybe, that investor will get 135. The professional investor will get 135 out of the 140, and then 5 will go to cost. So it'll look like this. And the difference here, the distance, is what you call a hedge. And it's just another way of saying risk management. So the professional investor is constantly minimizing his cost, minimizing his losses, constantly managing his risk, so the returns actually takes care of itself. And this is exactly what's happening in business as well. If you're a business owner, you're day to day constantly managing your operations, managing your risk, minimizing your risk. And what happens there is the returns take care of itself because you're in control of the investment, you're in control of your business, and you have influence over the outcome. Whereas right here, you do not have any of those. You have minimal downside protection, and you have out of control compounding costs because you really don't have a say. So again, we are not recommending anything. We are not picking on mutual funds. We are strictly using them as an example by highlighting what is the point of this session, which is compounding costs. So whether you will buy a mutual fund or not, that decision will be made by you and you alone with your advisor. What we strive to do is give you education, give you a platform where you will be now a more informed investor. So I hope this clarifies a lot of confusion. And this is the only reason why we say it is a myth, because of the compounding cost. So stay tuned for the other segments. And thank you for watching.